Welcome to You Make the Difference. I'm Wanda Walker, and I have as my guest today Sherry Brown, who's the director of Circles of Troup County. And we're going to talk about Poverty Awareness Week. That's coming up, isn't it? And when is that, Sherry?
March 16th through the 22nd.
Okay, and what is that about?
That is a week that we are working with United Way and the LaGrange College Servant Scholars and Circles are working together to bring just awareness of issues of poverty in our community to the community. And so we're going to have quite a few activities and events that people can attend. They can come to 1 or 5 or whatever they want to, but they'll have different aspects of the issues that people face in poverty.
Okay. And where will they be able to learn about what those events are?
Well, there'll be more information in the newspapers, and we'll have some posters out, and but they'll also be able to go to our website at circlesoftroop.org, and there will be a list of all the events and all the information they need.
Okay, and so what kind of things are you going to do? You're going to bring awareness to the community through these events. How are you going to do that?
Well, we're asking other organizations, nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations, even churches, to host their own events. So they'll all look different.
Okay.
And that it's not a fundraiser, and it's not just this is who we are and what we do, although we want people to understand what these organizations do. One of our programs that we're going to be doing that week is what we call an empty bowl lunch. And the students at LaGrange College have handmade pottery bowls and glazed them, and we will be giving those out to each person that comes to our lunch, and they're going to be served soup and a lunch, and they'll get to take that bowl home. We'll clean it out for them, but they'll get to take that bowl home. But while they're there, it's just a 1-hour lunchtime, we'll be able to hear from some people who participated in Circles and also some people who volunteer for Circles, and talking about what our organization does and how that addresses some of the issues in our community.
Yes. So this is a coordinated effort. Have you coordinated this effort in the community with the different agencies, or is it just something that those agencies who minister to that population have decided to do during Poverty Awareness Week?
Well, we're trying to bring it all together for that week. For instance, Boys and Girls Club is going to do, they haven't quite decided what their event will be, but they will have an event. They can choose to do a play or an open house or however they want to do it, and present, the issues of children and what they do and the problems that they see and what they're about trying to change. And we will advertise that for them as a part of that week.
Yes. And so Circles of Troup County is working with people who are ready to come out of poverty.
Yes.
And so that organization is addressing that population. Why do you feel that it's important for the whole community to be aware of these issues?
Well, poverty is an interesting issue. It's often invisible if you don't live in it. And I think it's invisible a lot of times because, we have our meetings and they're open to the public, and I'll have visitors. We had several visitors last week, and the comments that I heard from most of the visitors that came, I can't tell who's a volunteer and who's a participant.
Yes.
And I like that. We're pretty, we try to have a level playing field when we're at our meetings, and you really can't. There's no big ID mark on I'm poor and I'm not.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the times poverty affects people that are sitting next to you at your church, working with you at the next desk, sitting next to you in your classroom, and we don't always realize it. But I think if you understand some of the issues when the general middle class public makes decisions and they understand better issues that people in poverty face, then I think we're all better.
Yes.
We're better neighbors, we're better coworkers, we're better employees, we're better church members, we're just better community.
Yes.
And we think that's important.
Yes. And I became aware of that very thing about you're not able to tell who's in poverty sometimes and who isn't. When I worked for the health department, we did a home visit, and in the health department, a lot of times, people are wearing what you're wearing. But then when we went into the home, I had a seat on the couch, and when I sat on the couch, I actually went to the floor. The springs were not in the couch. And there was a hole in the floor. And so on the outside of the house, I wouldn't have known that was inside the house either. And so lots of times we may pass by even certain houses and not realize the struggle that's going on with the family. Now, you've had some help with the funding. Tell me about that. Who has supported Poverty Awareness Week? And
Circles is doing that. Circles is funding that
about
right
the
now.
grants. Have you had grants though?
No, what we're doing is we're going to provide some grants for the organizations that participate.
Oh, okay.
Each when you, like if you come to our empty bowl lunch, you will get a
Yes.
little evaluation card that asks you a couple of questions, and on the back we will list all the organizations that are participating that week. You get to vote for one.
Okay.
At the end of the week, everybody that comes to any event will get to vote. At the end of the week, the one with the first the most will get $750. The one with the second gets $500, and the one with the third most gets $250. And we're doing that to help the organizations.
Yes.
We're also doing that to kind of, give an incentive for people to come and know that they're supporting these organizations as well. That their attendance will actually help some other people as well.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not getting grants, but you're
We're
giving
giving 'em.
grants.
Yes.
Yay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, for people who don't really know what Circles is, will you define that for us? What is Circles of Troup County?
Circles is the poverty initiative that the Center for Strategic Planning started to address the issue of poverty. We have a lot of wonderful organizations in Troup County
Yes.
that address a lot of issues. We have an excellent domestic violence program. I mentioned Boys and Girls Club. They have a great program. Habitat for Humanity, Dash for LaGrange. There's so many that address some real issues. But what you discover is childcare helps. Quality childcare helps, but it doesn't always get you out of poverty. Having safe and affordable housing certainly helps, but
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily get you out of poverty. And so Circles was created and brought to LaGrange to address the broader comprehensive issue of poverty. And we look at it, there's really two aspects of poverty that we try to address. The individual family, and we of course bring in individual families who want to become self-sufficient and who
Yes.
are ready to do that. And there's a long process to get to us, and then it's a 2-year process in our program to begin to set goals and reach those goals and change your life. And it is working.
Yes.
But the second prong that we look at is also addressing some systemic issues. Poverty isn't just about an individual. Of course, that does have a lot to play, but there are systemic issues that tend to keep people in poverty, and we want to address those as well.
And so the systemic issues are community issues, aren't they? And so that is why we all must be aware of poverty and what it's caused and what it looks like, and how even businesses sometimes contribute to keeping people in poverty. So so your goals, tell us how you're moving toward accomplishing the goals of Circles in the community.
Well, this Poverty Awareness Week is one of those. We're doing a lot of things right now. We are on our 3rd class
Yes.
of participants. Now, no class is actually finished. A lot of people will hear that we have graduates, and the process is once you make an application and you are interviewed and accepted into the program, you go through a 12-week class where we teach skills. We do talk about money management, but we also talk a lot about goal setting, about the hidden rules of economic class,
Yes.
which really helps people understand others as well as themselves. So we have a broad spectrum of topics that we teach. At the end of that, you graduate from that class, and then you become what we call a circle leader. And we give you a circle of volunteers that support you and encourage you as you work on your journey to set goals and reach those goals to move to self-sufficiency. Now, we are a little different. Some organizations you will see, you will go and connect with them and they'll give you a list of things that they want to see you do.
Yes.
We don't do that because my path out of poverty will be different than your path out of poverty. For some people, it may be going back to school. For some people, it may just be getting a better job. For some people, we have some people who have a pretty good job, but they don't know how they need to think about money differently.
Yes.
And they need to think about perhaps relationships differently. So there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different paths. So we help you figure out what you need to do, and you set your goals, and then we walk with you to reach those goals.
Yes. And so you have 3 groups right now that are going through. And one of them is midway through the process. The first group is midway through the process. Tell us about that group and some of the successes that you've seen, or where they are in their journey at midpoint.
Okay, that's a good question. I just actually met with each individual person, and then their volunteers. We met as a group and said just what you asked. Tell me what you've done in the first 9 months of being matched with allies. That's what we call our volunteers, as allies. And then tell me what you want to do in these next 9 months before the program is completed for you. And it was really encouraging to sit down. And you know, some things sound little, but they're really, really big.
Yes.
And for some, we had one woman, she's a single mom with 3 kids. She didn't really have parenting models in her life. She's never had it. And she really wanted to develop better relationships with her children. And so she set a goal of 30 minutes a week of one-on-one with each child. That was huge for her, and it's really improved their family, and so that was one of her goals. At the same time, she has changed jobs and it has made a budget, and she's, you know, ended some things she's spending some money some ways that she's not spending, and you know, changing how she's handling her money.
Yes.
I have folks I have one who said, well, 9 months ago I couldn't buy my own toilet paper. And now I have a full-time job, and I'm paying my way, and it feels great.
Yes.
And so that's huge. Just numbers-wise, I don't have all the complete numbers, but many of our folks have reduced the amount of assistance they're receiving. So that's, you know, money back into the community's pocket. I have one woman who came in with a part-time job. She moved to a full-time job. She was value employee of the quarter.
Wow.
One of those. But the job was good, and she was doing all right, but the hours were poor, and she had 2 young children. And she had gone to school for another field, and she couldn't break into that field. It was the healthcare field, and it was a really tight community here. And she didn't know anybody, and she couldn't really get there. So her allies kind of worked together and heard about opening, and made a few calls and got her an interview. But she got her own job.
Yes.
And she got that interview, and within a few hours I called her back for a second interview, and she's now working in that job. So now she's not only got a full-time job, and she's off of housing assistance, she's off of food stamps. Her child care assistance is about half of what it used to be. And she's really close to making it completely on her own, and she's in a field that she loves, that she's worked towards, and that she finds real significance in. So she's just flying.
Yes. And you know, one thing that I've noticed by participating in circles, that there are hard workers.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And some people working 12-hour days, but still struggling to make ends meet. And so, you know, circles is that support that they get in coming out of poverty and finding jobs that they're able to work at and make a living and those kinds of things. And it's such a blessing to our community. The circle leaders have participated in some community events, and I know they interviewed the candidates for the mayor.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Oh, that was great. We do once a month, we have what we call an education night. It's open to the community, and we try to bring in a speaker that benefits our folks, that's volunteers and participants. We've had, we had information on the new healthcare system and how to sign up and what the issues are with that, just kind of help us figure those out. We've had We've got one coming soon about financial aid and how to get it and how to pay it back and how to handle all that. So we've had, I'm going a little blank, we've had a lot of them, but I can't quite remember all of them. But we did do, someone suggested that they would, well, actually someone walked up to me one night and said, who are you voting for? And I'm like, well, you just vote for whoever you want to vote for. I don't really promote a person. And I said, you know what? She said, I don't know anything about them.
Yes.
And I said, well, you know what? Let's just ask them all to come here. And so that ended up kind of growing from there. And we held a forum at the library. It was packed. It was standing room only. And all 3 candidates came. They were very respectful, and we really appreciated them giving that time to us. And I have to say, our participants felt honored. I think it made them realize that their opinion counts and their vote counts, because every one of those candidates wanted their votes.
Yes.
And they came up with the questions. They fielded it wasn't a debate. It was just, we had a series of questions on issues that were appropriate for our group. And we asked them, they each gave they had 3 minutes. I was the timekeeper, that's all I did. And they had 3 minutes to give their answer. They came very well prepared, very researched, and they gave very good answers. And I think everybody that was there left with a really good sense of knowing the information they needed to make an informed vote.
Yes, and the circle leaders asked the questions.
They did.
Yeah, so
and they were great.
Yeah, they conducted that meeting. So yes, it was great. And then I know that the circle leaders also went before the city council.
We had several. There was an ordinance up regarding predatory lending and limiting some of that. That is an issue that affects greatly the poverty community. And we had 3 people that spoke of their own experiences and voiced their opinions. And again, it was empowering to know that their voice, their opinion matters and is important. And I think we stood for something that was right.
Yes. And then, going before the city council, that is a really big step. And so that takes courage. And I'm sure once you've done that, I mean, you have to feel better about yourself than you used to.
And I think people in poverty often feel, we're talking back to that invisibility. They don't feel like the world thinks they matter.
Yes.
And these issues do matter. These issues affect everyone, even if you don't see them on the front lines. And we need people to be aware of that. But their voice is important, because my folks have a knowledge that I don't have and you don't have, that they uniquely have.
Yes.
They're not stupid. I think there's kind of some people just think, well, they don't know anything. They're very aware. They're very aware of issues. They're very aware of some problems, and they can speak to it articulately and with their own personal knowledge. And that's valuable.
Yes. Now Sherry, talk to us a little bit about predatory lending. Like not necessarily controversial stuff, other than like if somebody borrows money from one of those lending companies, like the percentage of interest that they might pay and those kinds of things, and why that goes against the people who are trying to come out of poverty.
It is a small loan, a small short-term loan.
Yes.
And these are the title lenders that you'll see. In fact, we have 9 on in LaGrange. There are 9 title lenders, or what we would refer to as predatory lenders or short-term loan organizations on Commerce Avenue in 3,600 feet, I believe it is. So we have a lot for our community. That's really not great for business. I'm trying to say it the right way.
Yes.
But just to lay it out for you, and my information comes from an organization it's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that does information on lending, and that's where my information has come from. Just to give you an example, if I were to buy a house right now, I think it's about 4 or 5% annual interest rate.
Yes.
If I were to get a credit card, I'm going to pay, depending on the card, 18, 21%, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, annual interest rate on the balance that I carry over. When you are not able to get a credit card, and some people don't realize that there are a lot of people that are not able to get a credit card. If you don't have a job, if you don't have an income, you can't get one. If you have poor credit, you can't get a credit card. And so if your car breaks down And of course, in our county, we don't have any transportation, and you've got to have $250 to fix your car, and no one in your family has that for you, then very often your only option is one of these title lenders. You use the title of your car as your collateral and you borrow the money. It's usually $250, $500. People don't really borrow $10,000 from these organizations, about $1,000, $1,500.
Yes.
The national average annual percentage rate is 400%. That I get people that hear that and say, well, you just need to train people not to go there. But the reality is, if you have a crisis and you live in poverty and you don't have, and all of our folks, we talk to them a lot about having, an emergency fund, but sometimes you don't have enough for your emergency. And what do you do? What are your options? And for many, that's their only option. Now, I will say, Circles does not give people money. We don't give anything away. We have created, for people who have been in Circles, working on their goals and actively involved in giving back to Circles in the community, we have created a loan fund within our organization only, up to $500, to help people avoid these kinds of interest rates and fees and really outrageous paybacks.
Yes.
Concepts. And we want to get them away from that. And so we have lent out some of that, and then they come up with their own payment plan. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's $25 a month, $50 a month, but we would much rather them pay us back at no interest.
Yes.
And we expect them to pay it back. We don't give money to people who don't have a job.
Right.
They have to have an income and have a plan to pay it back, and they do.
Yes.
But that's something that we help them avoid, a really big trap.
Yes. Now, when they go in to sign those papers, they don't see that there's a 400%.
Well, some people might argue that. I mean, obviously it's a legal document, and if you really know what you're reading, you're going to see it.
You're going to see.
But they're not real. I mean, a lot of times, even
we sign stuff.
We sign papers
without reading.
I don't read all that little print all the time, and but the reality is, very often they're there because it's their only option.
Yes.
And we also talk a lot about the rent to own. It's about the same level of interest as well, and so we try to steer them away from those places as well.
Okay, and
I'm going to get in trouble for all this.
There's also a new issue that you are going to deal with, or a new issue on the table, and that is addressing some of the hardships that felons have in the community.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the issues we do have what we call a big view issue. That's what we call that part of Circles that addresses systemic issues. That has been, we actually spent 3 months early on, well, a month, several sessions, examining and identifying the issues that were unique to Troup County. Not everywhere. Now, we have a really big transportation issue. If we lived in Atlanta, we would have a bus system, we would have different, that might not be as big of an issue. That's a big issue here. And so how can we address those? So we looked at our issues, and we came up with 12 very big issues, and then we narrowed those down, and as a group voted on what we would address. The first issue we did address was the felony issue. What happens, and this was kind of news to me, I didn't really quite realize, but in Georgia, there's no limits. So if I'm an employer, I can ask on an application, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Yes.
Now, I'm not one that thinks that ought to be a secret. I mean, I think that employers have a right to know some things. But what happens is when you ask that, if you were 23 and stupid and did something, and now you're 53, it doesn't matter. You still have to check you've been convicted of a felony.
Yes.
And because our community is very heavily manufacturing, and so many of our companies are large companies, they're online applications only. You can't write something. Now, in the old days, 5 years ago, you could write on an application, I would like to talk about this, and you didn't have to check it. And that was how a lot of people were trained to do it. And then they could come in, if they were qualified, sit down and tell their story and say, look, this happened 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I haven't been in trouble since then. I want to tell you my story, whatever. And that would give you a chance. Now that is used as a screening tool, and if you check yes, and you have to check yes or no, and you don't lie because you know they're going to find out. You check yes, it's gone. And so your chances of getting a job in this community are really, really low. we have a small percentage, and I just learned this recently, we have a very small percentage of small businesses.
Yes.
Small businesses aren't quite so difficult, but if you're trying with the large businesses, you're almost just disqualified from even applying. Quite a few of our temporary agencies will not accept an application from a felon because the manufacturers won't that they work with.
Yes.
And so they don't.
And so what are you going to do to try and...
We're working on raising some awareness.
Yes.
We're having some discussion. We actually, some of our group met with Senator Josh McCoon, who is the head of our legal committee, our judicial committee, for the state, and expressed some of our opinions. He's working on some new concepts. That's a whole other
Yes.
day for another day, but that's very interesting, and we hope to be a part of making some of those changes. And we've been writing to some of our other senators and decision makers, and hope to
Yes.
have our voice and our experience used for
there.
good.
Yes. All right. So I know that you have 3 groups going, and every time you get a group going of people going through circles to come out of poverty, you need allies.
Yes.
So tell us what the allies would do, what the appeal is.
Allies change the world.
Yes.
They really do. They come in and they say, I'm going to be your friend for 18 months. Sounds huge. It's not nearly as huge as it sounds. We want them to be your friend. We want you to be a supporter. Sometimes it's just being on the other end of the phone when you had a
Yes.
really bad day, because some of our folks are really alone in this world. Sometimes it's just making a phone call to someone you know and saying, hey, I think I know someone who's a really good employee. Will you give them an interview?
Yes.
And you open the whole world for them. So you use your connections, you use your knowledge, and you're just a friend. Like I said, it's about 6 to 8 hours a month is the commitment, and we really work hard to connect people with people that they really have common interests and that they will really enjoy. And I think my husband is an ally, and he says it's the best thing he's ever done, and he's done a lot.
Yes.
But he absolutely loves it. He's learned, and he feels like he's made a significant difference in someone's life, and she has made a significant difference in his as well.
Yes, and I've watched that relationship, and I know that is true. And so I would just like to encourage all of you out there to get involved in Circles of Troup County in some way.
Yes.
Yes, on the first Thursday night of each month, we have community night. You can come in and just have supper and meet people and also see how you might get involved. And then I would also like to encourage you to think about being an ally. We seriously need people who will come around, great people, and help them move forward with their plans. And I believe I'm speaking to a lot of great people who will be willing to do that and who are very able to do that. So I'd like for you to get in touch with Sherry if you're interested and hear more about that. And I'd just like to say to you, thank you for watching You Make the Difference, because you truly do.
Got a promise from heaven. It's a year of replevin. Got a promise from heaven, it's all coming back. Everything Satan has stolen,